Good evening. I really felt like making this video tonight because I know I'm interested in people's stories, who they are, how they became who they are, and I felt that it was just time in this video to share my story, I guess, on how I became who I am today, the music I enjoy, the darkness that is me. Because there's just a very, at least for me, there's a very specific moment, a very specific year where it was just like a switch. And I don't know, I just felt like sharing that story and maybe discover some stories of some of you tonight. So I moved around a lot as a kid. My parents, we moved because of the job of my parents. I was born and raised in the Netherlands. When I was 11 years old, I moved to France. I moved back to the Netherlands, back to France, to Austria, back to France. It's a whole thing. But each time that I moved, you kind of lose the friends that you have. And each time you have to start over. And growing up in the Netherlands and in France, it's two very different cultures. Two kids were just very different. And so when I was 11, I moved to France. And about 2 years later, 2.5 years, I moved back to the Netherlands. And when I got back to the Netherlands, kids were just very different. And I wasn't goth yet or anything or metal, I was like 13, I think, when I moved back to the Netherlands. And they had a hard time readjusting me to school. Kids, they learn different things. Kids, they have grown up in different ways, France and the Netherlands, they were very different, especially back then. So I started to get bullied because I was very different from others in my mind, I was just younger, less adult, I guess, is what it comes down to. And I was bullied for several years. And not like a kick me sign on the back, like I was like punched and beat and, things were stolen from me. I was extorted, and it sounds as brutal as it is. And, I was like stabbed with like, not knives, but what do you call that in English? The things you use in math to draw a circle, Like, oh, it was brutal. It was absolutely terrible. And at one point, I broke down in front of my parents after the bullying reached its limit. And that's kind of where my story, my origin story, that's where it begins. That is the moment where I became who I am. This year is 1999. In 1999, there were 3 albums that were released, and they're like stepping the foundation of who I am. So I was bullied, like I said, and before it reached the climax, my bully, I tried to become friends with him, and anything that I could, and my bully is the one who introduced me to the first CD that will make me who I am today. And that CD is Slipknot. Slipknot's first, not the first, the self-titled album, because they made something before this that was never released, but the self-titled album. Specifically, Wait and Bleed, the song. I love that song still today. That's not Stockholm Syndrome, I just legit love Slipknot. My favorite album is the Subliminal Verses, but none of that matters in the story today. So the self-titled album, my bully blasted it on repeat, and I went to the store that same day to buy this album, to try and get into the music, to bond with my bully in a way. And the funny thing is that I found like an outlet in the violence of this music, the aggressiveness of the drums and the lyrics. And it was good, because people say, oh, you should stand up to your bully and that kind of stuff. It's not that easy. It's just not that easy. And I had no outlet for the rage that I felt inside. I wanted to hurt my bully, but I wasn't capable of it. So Slipknot provided this outlet for that rage, and I started to grow to love the music. This is my first phase into metal, really. And then the bullying reached its climax, like I mentioned before. My parents found out that the school just didn't do anything about it, because the school knew, they knew I was being bullied. And they pulled me out of the school, and this was a phase where, fortunately I don't do it anymore, but I started smoking. And I met one of my friends who lived in my neighborhood, and we bonded over smoking. He's the friend who later on introduced me to things like Within Temptation and In Flames, this very symphonic metal side. But he's not part of this story. None of that music is part of this story. And I also met my neighbor, and we became really good friends because I got into Slipknot, so slowly I started to sink into that world, really. And my neighbor introduced me to, for example, Cradle of Filth and Demi Borgir. Like a more, specifically Cradle of Filth, is more gothic, symphonic side of metal. And at one point I was sitting at home during this break where I was between schools. And, I started, my neighbor, he got me more into this world, so I started wearing more band shirts, more black clothes, and I really started to sink into this world, and I started embracing this world for what it is. And I was sitting at home, and this is 1999, so in 1999, Slipknot's self-titled album released. And in 1999, another album released, Tuonela from Amorphis. The clip on TV was Divinity, and I was listening to this music and I was thinking, oh my god, I can't believe this side of metal existed. Because I just knew this aggressive side from then, apart from like hearing some Metallica on TV that I never really got into, like this aggressive metal is what I knew. But then I learned that there's this poetic side to metal, this really soft with like poetic lyrics and melodies and all that stuff. And this clip, Divinity, I think it's Pasi Koskinen who was singing at the time during Tuonela. He was wearing this all black clothes. He had like this long black hair. He had like this red in his hair, and I was like, oh my god, this dude is just so cool. I'm like, I want to look more like this dude. It's amazing. I just thought he looked so cool. So I bought myself like a black leather coat, like a long coat, and I really got more into the black clothes of everything and really got lost into the world that way, fashion-wise, I guess. We're wearing like pendants and rings and spikes and all that kind of stuff. And not long after that, I was with my friend who introduced me to Cradle of Filth and stuff, and we liked going to this metal store. We loved going to this metal store. You had that back then, in the Netherlands at least, metal stores. We just, you had like knights and weapons on the walls and all that kind of stuff. And they would always have this music playing. And I was listening to this song, and it was driving me insane. I loved this song. And, I wasn't thinking much of it. We were just smoking at the counter together and, just spending time there, really. And then we left. But I couldn't get the song that I was hearing out of my head. And I went back the few weeks following it, but they didn't have the song on display anymore. The CD was gone. And it was driving me insane. And all I knew that it said Stronghold. So in my mind, the band is called Stronghold. So every day after that, not even kidding, every day for 2 or 3 weeks, I went back to the store, I looked at the S's, Stronghold, this band isn't there, Stronghold, this band isn't there. I didn't understand it. Until one day, I went back, about 2 or 3 weeks after that, and they had the album there, Stronghold. But then I learned Stronghold is the name of the album. The band is Summoning. I was just lucky that it both started with an S, and I saw this, Summoning. The album Stronghold. The song they had playing was Long Lost to Where No Pathway Goes. And I bought the CD instantly just based off hearing that song once 3 weeks before that. And that's where I found just my absolute sound. And I became in peace with everything. I felt it was the last piece of the puzzle from being forced into the dark world by my bully, discovering Slipknot, finding peace, finding my niche with Amorphous and the poetic melodic side, my neighbor introducing me to this world of darkness, the clothes, the band shirts, all that stuff. And then when I found Summoning, is my favorite band of all time. Because at that moment I found like this inner peace where I'm like, this music is just who I am. And I found my sound there with Stronghold, with Summoning. So it really is these 3 CDs that just made me who I am today in general. We have the self-titled album from Slipknot, released in 1999. We have To an A-Lad from Amorphous, released in 1999. And we have Stronghold, also released in 1999. 1999 is that year where I became who I was. So after all this, after being bullied, after finding all this music and having these friends in my neighborhood, I just became a whole different person. I embraced this darkness. I felt like this was this was who I was. And I changed schools because the friend who I started bonding with over smoking, of In Flames, Within Temptation, Nightwish, he was like, dude, come to my school. So I started going to his school. And in this school, we had like metalheads and goth, and we were all coming together. And there were like a bunch of them. I'd never seen it before. And I made all these friends in all these different grades, not even just in my class. And we just bonded over just the metal and the darkness. And I just felt like I finally found a place where I belonged. And then years later, I was introduced to just a very specific goth side, thanks to an amazing person. And they introduced me to things like Type O Negative and The Cure, which are bands that I heard of before, but I just always skipped away from it, because at that point I was more into the metal goth side of everything. Then I started really going into more of that type of thing. And this person, not just it's like I discovered the world, then like I embraced it, and this person amplified it, and I feel that I just started feeling way more comfortable who I am, and they started pushing me out to just making me feel more myself than I ever felt before, and I just completely just embraced everything around it. And it's just this long journey that all started in 1999 when these 3 albums released, when I met all these people, and I just really became myself. In 1999, I also started letting my hair grow long. I bought the long coats, I bought the band shirts, the black clothes. It was literally for me a switch from one day to the other in 1999. That just happened. And then over the course of the years, I met all these other people who just introduced me to these different aspects of the cultures. And there were just these 3 people that just really defined who I am today, be it good or bad, really. And I just felt like sharing that story today. I feel like a lot of people in the community, they make videos about what they wear and what they listen to, but I'm just fascinated in who these people are, who all of you are that are watching this video, your stories, like what got you to what you are today. But definitely in the comment section, or do a video response. Let me know if you did a video response, for example, in the comments below. Like, let me know how you became the person that you are today. Is there a segue? Is there a certain person, a certain album or song that just made you who you are today? And I feel, every person that I met, like the last person that introduced me to really like the really deep goth stuff, thanks to them, like I feel more myself. Like I'm wearing like nail polish, for example. It's something that I never had the guts to do when I was younger, and just now I just feel like I can really be myself and fully accept myself for who I am. And thanks to this person, I discovered all this music. And then via you're introduced to other stuff. I was introduced to like the really German side, the really German goth culture. You have bands like Mono Inc., Lacrimosa, Lord of the Lost. I have friends in the UK now who introduced me to all these bands, and it's just such an amazing experience feeling that throughout my life. More and more I'm discovering who I am. I'm at peace with who I am, and just I'm feeling put at ease for being who I am. I'm not really looked weird at, but not even just accepted, but I'm being encouraged to just fully live my life as myself. It sounds really strange, and it sounds like less deep than it really is. I'm just curious to know how this has been for all of you. I want to thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed this kind of a really personal vlog, really, because it's not easy to talk about the bullying. It's something that is still in my head today. It still affects me now, like 24 years later. It was a brutal time. And the friends that I met along the way, all the people that just, made me who I am today. And I find it just fascinating to talk about. And more so than that, fascinating to learn the journeys of others. So anyway, let me know in the comment section what you thought of this vlog. Let me know your stories. I'm legit curious about that stuff, and I hope to see maybe some comments or video responses from you. Subscribe to this channel if you want more gothic content. I have more reactions planned. I do reactions to TV shows and trailers and music and all that kind of stuff. I want to talk about the music that I enjoy, like I did today. I mean, I didn't, I'm not having the music blasting in this because it's more about the story behind the music. But, so there's more content like that. And vlogs, travel vlogs. I really like dark tourism. I have a lot of really cool dark tourism related videos coming up as well. So definitely subscribe to this channel if you want more of that content. Social media links in the video description. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. I'm Nethergoth everywhere. So just stick around. I look forward to just making a lot more content. And I just want to say, be kind to one another, even in the dark.